Almost all EMF, whatever you want to call them, devices are a load of bullshit. And I recently got the opportunity to test this one actually by accident, and it's Aries Tech. In this video, I'm going to tell you the truth about this technology, what they get wrong in the messaging, and whether or not it's actually useful for you. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Emmanuel Arbani. I'm a health and nutrition practitioner, and I've helped over 100 men and women discover what optimal health really feels like through a mitochondrial and biophysics lens. And EMFs, if you know me at all, are a huge point and a core pillar of how I help clients. I know all of the tips and tricks through discovering it on myself and making mistakes with EMFs and making mistakes with meters, learning how to read meters, and understanding units. So back to the point of this video. Aries Tech makes several devices that you can kind of see in this picture. And I got the opportunity to test the Lifetune 1, which, to be honest, I thought was complete bullshit, completely, because in their marketing, they explain how it doesn't reduce EMFs. And, you know, everybody can pay for papers, and we all know how that goes. And we all know how it's really important to critically analyze research. However, just because their messaging is wrong, apparently, doesn't mean their product doesn't work. And I got the opportunity to discover that. So I was at a client's house doing an environmental and light assessment, which is something I often do for clients who just don't want to do it themselves or can't. And I was testing her phone and her computer. And I was wondering why the emissions from her phone were so low. Now I've tested many phones, and I have a Cornet 5G EMF meter. And very often I see a trend. iPhones tend to be higher emitters with mitigation efforts than Android phones, whereas Android phones tend to be easier to kill by using things like airplane mode and disabling Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And some models of Androids tend to be very low emitters in general, which I have noticed. Like, for example, my husband's phone has always been an anomaly. So with all that being said, I tested her phone and I noticed she had the little Aries Tech sticker on it, which they now call the Lifetune, I think, or Aries 1. I don't know. And obviously I didn't want to take it off the case because I remember that their price point is, you know, above $100, I think it is. So I don't want to take it off of her phone and test it. What would her phone be without it and with it? But I was really surprised that I couldn't get her phone to read higher on a general basis. Even though it was an Android phone, given all the phones that I've tested, I was right beside the phone and I'm very familiar with what the readings should be, and they were not. They were much lower. So I took it upon myself and I decided to get one for my phone. Now I have an iPhone, and despite the fact that I've done all of the tricks, of which I will create an entire video on, but despite the fact that I've done all of the tricks, when it is in use, it is still pretty decent emitter. So my unit is currently measuring my EMF meter in milliwatts per meter squared, not microwatts per meter squared. This is an important distinction if you understand EMF measuring. It's also important to note that my house is fully mitigated. I do not have any Wi-Fi, any Bluetooth devices, any wireless whatsoever devices in the house, with the exception of the cell phones. And my cell phone I'm using with airplane mode, one tap zap, Bluetooth Wi-Fi disabled, location services disabled, find my iPhone disabled, find my network disabled for the most part. And sometimes, of course, I need to actually use my phone and I need to turn the data on. So I tested it. I went in a room upstairs and it has a relatively low background field. This is very important when you're testing for EMFs. I see so many people trying to distinguish the effects of a strategy in a high EMF environment that is not going to give you accurate readings whatsoever. It's just not. You need to go somewhere really low, where the background readings are, say, 0.05 milliwatts per meter squared, or 50, between like at least 100 microwatts per meter square, so 0.0100 milliwatts per meter squared, then and nothing higher. If you have it higher, it's just impossible to tell. Okay, so with that established, I took the measurements. I left it in the device in the box, and I took my phone and I measured my phone, and I was getting about like, so again, the readings are in milliwatts, so it was staying at a baseline, typically between 1 and 8 milliwatts per meter squared, and then it was peaking between 20, 80, and I even saw one peak at 100 milliwatts per meter squared. And then I put it on. So I put it on the physical phone, I removed the case, I put it on the back of the phone, and I turned the meter on again. And it dropped to sitting at a baseline of 0.1 and sometimes even 0.0800 and around milliwatts per meter squared, and peaking between 2 and say maybe 7 milliwatts per meter squared. So remember that prior, the peaks were sitting at 20, 80, even 100. And yes, they do vary, of course. I would occasionally get a higher peak, maybe 10, but it was still a significant difference between before. And in my opinion, if it's making a difference that big, that's a pretty big difference, then it's worth $100, because the amount of times that you may require to use your phone can be really high depending on what you do for a living. So that's huge. It bears to be said that I tried putting it on my case, which was a ridged case, and they do say not to do that, to their credit, and it did not work. And my peaks went back up. And then when I peeled it off, I used so many of the spare stickers that they gave me because I kept taking it off and putting it on, taking it off, putting it on. And I also, between the cases with the pressure, between the cases, I tried to cut a hole, but then it was poking into it. It wasn't so great. I don't actually understand how it works. I'll be totally honest. I got no freaking clue. The point is, I'm a firm believer is if the meter doesn't read a difference, it's not working. And the meter read a difference, a big one. So I'm very impressed. And I also want to say, I do not agree with their messaging at all, in which they say that you don't have to mitigate your EMF environment. You can use your phone and use your Wi-Fi and just use their products. That's a great marketing. It's terrible advice. And it's not advice I'm ever going to give you. You have to mitigate your home. You have to improve your phone habits. No, you can't have your phone in your pocket with the Aries One. That is a no-no, no matter what the heck you're wearing. Just don't put it in your pocket. Line your pocket with foil if you have to put it in your pocket for whatever reason and it has to be on. Otherwise, make it dead while it's in your pocket. Tell your friends, tell your family, I'll be available in, I don't know, an hour if you're going for a hike. Then disable all the radio frequency connectivity from your phone and put it in your pocket. Or put it in a backpack and put foil between you and the phone so you can still get the signal to come in, but there's more distance between you and it. Okay, there's so many tips and tricks that you can use and still use your cell phone. But to not mitigate, to continue to use Wi-Fi is completely ridiculous when there's so many better options like Ethernet. I mean, if it's not portable, it shouldn't be on Wi-Fi. It should be on Ethernet. And most of the stuff in your house is not portable. Plus, there's this lovely little invention called a power over Ethernet adapter that pretty much makes your hardwired connection portable. You just pair one to your modem. You attach an Ethernet cord from the outlet. So it has to be an outlet, can be an adapter extension beside your modem. And you put the Ethernet from that little thing. So it's this little plug, you plug it in. And then it goes into your modem and you plug it into there. And then you have a second unit that goes into any outlet wherever you want. So using a laptop, amazing. Take your laptop outside, plug it in to the outside outlet. You can use those heavy duty extension cords that don't have any surge protection for outdoors. Those work. You plug the Ethernet, power of Ethernet adapter onto those. You put the Ethernet cable from there onto your computer. Don't have an Ethernet port on your computer? That's fine. They sell these awesome things called USB-C to Ethernet adapters and USB to Ethernet adapters. One of them will work for your computer. And with that, you can not only have internet on everywhere portable around your house, but you can seriously mitigate. To sum it up, the Aries tech device, the Lifetune, the Aries One, whatever, does work. I have not tested their other devices. I will, and I will let you know what happens. So that one in particular, I say yes, just make sure you've got a flat case that is flush to your phone and you're not putting it over any magnetic part of your case. and you are sticking it directly on, and you are still mitigating. You're still reducing your exposure. You're still developing better phone habits. You're still going from Wi-Fi to Ethernet, and you're still making use of handy, cheap tools like Power over Ethernet adapters. But they do work. They're definitely worth the money with the amount of phones that we use. Just please don't listen to their messaging and don't think that it's good enough to just use them and not mitigate. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful at all, I would totally appreciate your feedback and a comment, a like, and a subscribe to my channel. And I'll catch you next time.